Hello and welcome back to Heart of Amethyst. We will be continuing where we left off with Ikalis. So I believe that this is the culmination at this point in the story of the three friends, companions, tutors? I don't know how you could call them. Where you, like, all your choices thus far sort of get that point with them started, that point. So with Ikalis, if you recall, you decided to spend the time with him basically I decided to spend the time with him the 3 times that you could. At the library, at a bookstore, and I forget what the third one was. I think it was probably the library, maybe? I don't know, I forget. But yeah, basically talking to Ikalis about what's going on, but also about your dreams and about what's going on with him, specifically with his family, I think the uncle and the cousin who's like supposed to be smarter than him, but it's kind of like, I don't want to call her ditzy, but like she's smart, but she is not socially smart, I guess is a good way to put it. But yeah. So yeah, like Ehlly and Ikalis bonded, and yeah, depending on if you do everything right, you will be getting the scene that you would see next. And I did have to fix that for Roderick, but that doesn't matter, you'll see that later. Anyway, so without further ado, let us continue Ikalis' side of the story. The Royal Library was mostly deserted during this hour, the candles burning low as they had been on for at least 5 hours since nightfall. I knew that I would find him here. Where else would he be? So I moved around, searching amongst every shelf and checking on every single desk. He was bound to be here somewhere, and I wouldn't rest until I find him. Luckily, after just a minute of searching, I spotted his big ears poking out of a massive book. He was gracefully sitting on one of those desks by the window. Should have known. Those are usually his favorite. Typical Ikalis. As I got closer, I managed to make out a better sense of the wolf's expression. He was wearing his typical calm expression. However, as I looked deeper, a sporadic twitch in his left ear gave his real emotions away. He was stressed out of his mind. It's late, I asked, playfully leaning against the table, my tail wagging from left to right. Also, I managed to sneakily take a peek at the book that he was reading. Something about essence of crystals. Good grief, was he still hung up on his cousin's latest discovery? Who let you in? The doorkeeper and I have become great friends, actually. Did you know that his wife gave birth to his 3rd son? I didn't know that. I mean, how would you? You're always stuck in a book. Poor Henry would be devastated. He speaks so highly of you, as if you were friends. I'm gonna have to break the news to him. The wolf grunted at that, but decided not to bother himself further with my comment. Probably because he knows that I'm right. You stopping anytime soon, by the way? No, and unlike some others, I can't afford to spend my nights idling. My job is rather demanding. Aw, come on. I came all the way here, you're not just gonna ignore me, are you? I said while moving a few inches closer to the wolf, our snouts almost touching nose to nose. That is exactly what I plan to do. Good night. It's gonna be fun. And after yesterday's party, I believe that you've earned some fun. He made it obvious that he didn't want to talk about it, but I know my Ikalis. You just need to push a little. You've been frowning ever since. I do not frown. You're doing it right now. Even behind that book, I can tell. He scoffed, but I knew Ikalis well enough. He was indeed frowning. Come on, get up. You and I are going out." That made him finally glance up, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Out? At this hour? What could we possibly do? Don't be ridiculous." "Oh, come on, it'll be fun. Plus, and we'll be doing something kinda scientific." As the wolf looked in my direction, I returned his gaze with the biggest puppy eyes that I could muster, which seemed to be breaking down his walls brick by brick. "And what would that be?" "Stargazing." Ikalis blinked at me, clearly baffled by my suggestion. He stayed quiet for a few seconds, which is something that he usually does when trying to come up with a smart response or a quick remark. "No." "Yes." "No." "Yep." "No." "Oh, yes." "I hate you." "Oh, you love me." It took us around half an hour to reach the spot that I had planned for us. The trip there, however, was met by a light drizzle and lots of complaining. I had to hear about how we would get sick, or about how our clothes would smell bad because of the dampness of the floor. But the most ridiculous complaint was about the fact that we had to walk all the way there and waste his night doing this. Despite that, I kept on going, pushing the wolf every step of the way. By the time that we lay down on the floor, the rain had already passed, although the dirt was still a bit damp. My back pressed into the wet grass, the cold seeping through my clothes, though I didn't mind it. Ikalis, on the other hand, clearly wasn't a big fan of it. Above us, the heavens stretched wide, not a single cloud in sight, and thousands of stars scattered like shards of glass across a field of black velvet. The view from my window was okay, but nothing compares to stargazing with your back on the ground. It's as if the universe itself engulfed your body entirely, becoming one with it. Actually, this brought me back to those nights in the forest, to those times that I would stargaze with my parents. Dad loved to tell me the name of the constellations. Looking at the sky was always one of his favorite hobbies. Whether it was a day or night, you could always catch my pops looking up into the endless sky. He would often tell me stories about princesses in towers, terrifying dragons, gallant knights in shining armor, or wise wizards that could bend the world with their fingers. My old man was more like a dreamer, while Mom would keep him grounded on the floor. I hope that, wherever they are happy together. I took a deep breath, directing my gaze back up, meeting with the immense sky. The stars above blinked down like thousands of eyes, silent, uncaring, or even watching. I pressed my paw against the damp grass, grounding myself and taking yet another deep breath. "We're going to catch a cold like this." The voice was barely a whisper, however, I could clearly hear the frustration in its tone. I rolled my eyes and laughed, as it reminded me of the way that Mr. Biscotti would always nag at me for sleeping on the floor. The view is worth it, though. Worth being sick? I highly doubt so. Ikalis huffed, sitting up beside me and sniffing disdainfully at the dampness in the air. "Try to relax, will you? We haven't even started yet, Mr. Tidy Pants." I muttered, folding my paws beneath my head, keeping my gaze fixed in the sky. Ikalis gave a long huffing sigh, but after a moment he gave up and moved closer. He complained a bit more, however, as though lying on the ground was more dreadful an ordeal. "Ugh, how distasteful." Ikalis shifted uncomfortably on the grass, muttering something about mildew, but this time his eyes stayed fixed on the night sky. The two of us lay there in silence, the grass cool and damp beneath us, the stars scattered endlessly above. The wolf's shoulders were brushing against mine, and I could feel his hand shyly brushing against my own. "So, do you do this often?" Not anymore, sadly. Used to do it a lot, though. But the stars are simply too beautiful tonight, so I thought that we could enjoy this moment together. There was an approving grunt coming out of the wolf, but aside from that, he said nothing else. He's always a bit shy at first, so it's best to get him going with a topic that he enjoys. And I had a perfect one. Know any constellations? Of course I do. I've read many books about astronomy. Actually, one of my ancestors dedicated his life to documenting most of the constellations of the known sky. Known sky? Is there any sky that we don't know? The universe is a big place, Ehlly. That's very deep. Bet I know more constellations than you, though. Preposterous. Didn't you hear what I just said? Then prove it, wise guy. How about we bet on it? Whoever can name the most can ask the other to do whatever they want. I grinned smugly, certain that I'd hook him by appealing to his ego. So predictable. Ikalis tilted his head, ears flicking, then gave a sharp, amused scoff. Do you even hear yourself? You're challenging me, of all people, in astronomy. He huffed and puffed, like in the fairy tales. While I often find your antics kind of funny, it would bring me no joy to humiliate you in such a way. I can only hear bonk, bonk, bonk. The constellations above our heads, half of them are named thanks to my ancestors' work. So your chances of winning are lower than 0. Oh, really? I arched an eyebrow, pretending to be unimpressed. Yes, really. I'll say it again. Prove it. Ikalis' cheeks turned red, his eyebrows frowning as he looked at me in disbelief. Then his chest puffed out, voice full of scholarly arrogance. Fine then, have it your way. But when I use my win to make you spend the whole day helping me organize books in the library, don't come crying. I chuckled under my breath, stretching my arms behind my head. You sound awfully confident for someone who's about to lose. I will make you eat those words in an instant. Despite his lofty words, his shoulder nudged a little closer against mine, his paw still brushing near my own as he fixed his gaze skyward, clearly eager to begin. Very well. Ikalis said, his voice brimming with confidence. Let us begin with something simple. The crown of Ligeri. You see it just above the southern horizon. Those 6 bright stars forming a tilted arc? Yeah, I see it. Well spotted. Those are said to be each of the principles of knowledge, which the goddess herself placed on her crown so that her children could always know what they are. Curiosity, evidence, reliability, coherence, critical thinking, and doubt. Impressive. You even know the story behind it. How about you just take this loss and we call it a night? Not so fast, pretty boy. See that crooked line near the east? The 4 stars, like a bent spear? That's the Wanderer's Path. Of course you would spot that. It's easy. Then how about you tell me the story behind it? With pleasure. Long ago, when mighty canine warrior challenged the strength goddess herself to a fight, he ultimately lost, and Grimmune forced him to wander the skies forever. That crooked line marks his trail across the skies. Sometimes if you stare at it long enough, you can still see him running. You do know your stuff. I could hear Ikalis' tail wagging behind him. He probably wouldn't say it to my face, but he was most certainly enjoying himself. Anyway, my turn, is it not? He gestured broadly to a cluster near the zenith, There, the chain of Eros. See those 5 stars in a jagged line? Eros was a king of old, whose life was driven by pleasure only. One day he laid in bed with 49 women at the same time, and died trying to mate with the 50th. The goddess has painted his death in the sky as a reminder that lust and excess only lead to doom for mortals. I tilted my head pretending to ponder. Actually, I heard a different version. I actually heard that the crooked line represents his broken dick. Ikalis nearly choked on his own laughter, trying to keep up with his scholarly composure. You're unbelievable. That is not how the record goes, and you know it. I don't know. Your version sounds all stiff and tragic. Mine, much more memorable if you ask me. I smirked, tapping my chin as if in deep thought. In any case, I believe it is your turn. My paw rose skyward again, tracing shapes against the velvet night. We continued naming constellation after constellation for what felt like ages. As it was to be expected, Ikalis was an endless well of knowledge, and it didn't look like it would be running dry anytime soon. Me, on the other hand, after the 10th name drop, I had to start really rocking my brain to scrap what little answers I managed to remember. At some point, I even made up a constellation. Luckily, he's very gullible. Speech increased to 36. And that is the Fang of Nero. Interesting, is it not? Yeah, totally. Well, it's your turn. How about... I stuttered, unable to find or even come up with another reply. I believe that it's time to hang in the towel. Well, would you look at that? I believe that you beat me. Congratulations. Just as expected. Told you that it was no use. Yeah, whatever. Just tell me when to go to the library to help you with those blasted books. I thought Ikalis would laugh, make a smart remark, or even mock me. But instead, he stayed completely quiet for a second. Actually, I changed my mind about that. I want you to do something else for me. Oh, what would that be? Ikalis didn't answer right away, which allowed an awkward silence to settle in between us. When you followed me to St. Cyril's, what were you doing there? Answer me truthfully and I will consider the debt fulfilled. My throat went dry. Of all the things that he could have asked for as a prize, why that? I mean, I thought that I'd managed to slip by unnoticed that day. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. So you knew. How? Since when? Ikalis sighed, his tone of voice letting slip a hint of frustration as he answered. I thought that I was supposed to be the one asking. But fine, I'll humor you. That very same day, the guards reprimanded me for allowing other guests without informing them first. When I asked them what in heavens they were talking about, they told me a suspicious-looking fox had entered the building under the pretense of being my acquaintance. I suppose you can understand why my mind immediately went to you. Damn. Busted. Now, if you may. Well, I guess there's no point in hiding the truth anymore. Besides, I did want to have a conversation about what happened that day. The short answer is that I was worried about you. The long answer... well... it's not like you're the easiest person to read, you know. I've tried to pretend that I don't care, but when you disappear for days and then come back looking more tired than ever, acting like nothing happened, believe it or not, my heart starts to ache. I worry about you. And I want to know you more. Maybe ease the load a little bit. I know it's silly, but I would like you to rely on me a bit more. Not just to repay all that you've done for me, but also to be closer friends? Is that too cheesy? Ikalis' lips parted a little, as if he were about to say something, but instead the sweetest and kindest chuckle that I've ever heard him muster came out of him. It is very sweet of you. Still, you shouldn't pry into my private affairs without my consent. I know. But that day, man, how do I put this? You looked heavier, more under the weather than usual. I just couldn't ignore it. Without a warning, the wolf's hand took mine, interlocking his fingers with my own. Moreover, his head leaned on my shoulder, and for the first time I felt he trusted me enough to let his guard down. I looked at him sideways, but he was acting like it was not a big deal, so I did the same. I'm guessing you heard my conversation with my father. Bits and pieces, yeah. Knowing you have questions. A few, yeah. Good, because I don't intend to answer any of them. It will be your punishment for eavesdropping. Well, that's fair enough. Can we stay like this a bit longer, though? Yes. Yes, we can. I jumped from one rock to the next, arms spread wide to keep my balance. The stream below gurgled loudly, cheering for me to fall onto it, wishing to drench me with its cold water. But I was no easy target. I had skipped these rocks a million times over, and I would do it a million times more. So I laughed victoriously as I safely landed on the other end, dry and unbeatable. Better luck next time. I said to the water as I ran ahead, pushing past low branches and ferns that snapped back into place behind me. The forest was full of life as always. The birds were singing happily above me, the bugs hid as I ran past them, and a family of little bunnies jumped around when they saw me pass. I slowed down only when my lungs started to burn, paws resting on my knees as I caught my breath. Then I dropped onto the floor, basking on the feeling of grass on my fur. The air smelled like wet earth and pine sap, familiar and comforting. Moreover, I couldn't help but get comfortable, stretching my body and taking a deep breath. The sky above me melted into soft shades of pink and peach, brushed with lavender and pale gold. I lazily watched the sky and counted the clouds as they stretched and folded into new shapes. I closed my eyes and relaxed, feeling more comfortable than I've been in years. However, before I could start counting sheep to fall into slumber, I felt a presence sitting beside me. At first, I couldn't recognize who it was, and for some reason my eyes were stuck on the sky, unable to move away from its hypnotic movements. But then, as a soft touch grazed my shoulder, I immediately recognized this mystery person. Mom? She didn't respond, she just let her touch linger, which made me feel an array of emotions that were about to bring me to tears. I thought you were making dinner. What are you doing out here? Again, silence. I couldn't tell what was going on inside of her head, but for now, the fact that I could feel her touch was enough for me. I want to tell you so many things. Don't even know where to start. I nervously chuckled at my own comment, unable to think of anything to say. However, before I realized, words started to come out of my mouth. I'm really trying my hardest, you know. I continued, wanting to fill the silence with chatter, hoping this moment would stretch for longer. I haven't found Mary, though. I'm sorry. I know it's been 15 years, but the kingdom is really big and I'm just a commoner. So please, please, don't be mad. Her thumb paused for just a second, then resume its slow rhythm. So I took this as a sign that she was listening. Mr. Biscotti is doing fine, by the way. He's been taking care of me since what? I can't remember. Anyway, I've gotten into some trouble here and there, but it's nothing that I can't handle. Well, actually, I've been getting into a lot of trouble lately. Been through some major life changes. You won't believe who I met. The king. I met face to face with the king himself. Can you believe that? Her hand stilled again, longer this time, and I felt a gentle weight press against my side, like she leaned closer. She lifted my head softly and placed it on the top of her lap. Then a moment after, I felt her fingers brush my hair softly, messing with it as she would usually do. Yeah, I know. You probably think that I'm crazy, but it's true. He even offered me a job. Been under his wing for the past few months. That's when I met Ikalis. Probably the smartest person that I've ever met in my life. He's actually amazing how many things he knows, like a walking encyclopedia. He speaks of ancient kingdoms as if he had dined in their courts, of herbs and stars and forgotten tongues as though they were dear companions of his youth. At times, I wonder if there is anything that he doesn't know. He carries himself effortlessly too, always tidy to perfection, always immaculate, not a strand out of place. Even the air around him smells great. And he's always polite, even when he clearly doesn't want to be. I chuckle at the image of Ikalis' fake smile and false flattery that he sometimes uses in social gatherings. The image of a scholar through and through. However, he can be a bit snooty too. And sometimes, all that makes me feel like we're from two entirely different worlds. I look down onto the ground trying to gather my thoughts. While it's true that he can sometimes be a bit unreachable, when you get to know him, he's actually a very sweet guy. And, well, it's a bit embarrassing, but sometimes when he speaks, I find myself watching his lips more than listening to his words. My cheeks grow red after those words leave my lips, and I cannot but cover my face, feeling a bit shy. The way that his brow furrows when he is deep in thought, the way that his long fingers trace the margins of a page with such a tender care. I also love when he's embarrassed or when he acts shy. That pink hue of his cheeks is the cutest thing in the world. Listen to me. I sound like a fool. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with... That was when I felt her hand rest on mine, and I finally managed to get a glance at her face. She looked as beautiful as always, as if not a mere moment had passed since. My silly son, those feelings are good. You don't have to hide them. Keep them close to your heart, especially in times to come, as you will need reliable people who you can depend on. She places a hand on each of my cheeks, and I can't help but melt. My brave child, stay strong, and whatever happens, always rely on your friends. The way forward will be paved by the will of your heart. May the light guide your way. Mom? And just like that, all of a sudden I was back in my room. Tears were running down my face as my breath caught halfway in my throat. The ceiling above me was no longer painted in pink and gold, but in the pale gray of early dawn. The forest was gone alongside the warmth of her touch. The sheets beneath me were twisted and damp, most likely from sweat and tears. And then, as I pressed my heel on my paw against my eyes, I finally understood. It was just a dream. Man, I can't help but wonder. Did you get to see the boys' secret scenes, or did you somehow end up reading the shortest update so far? If all you got was a dream with Ehlly and his mom, well, congratulations. You didn't earn enough love points. That means that you'll have to replay the whole game. Just kidding. You can simply use the chapter select menu and jump back to the beginning of chapter 4 with max love points. What you do from there is up to you. For those of you who did read the secret scenes, what did you think? Which one was your favorite? Did you stick with a single route or did you read all 3? I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. If you haven't already considered joining our Discord server, feel free to stop by and say hi. I'd love to have you as part of our little community that we've built. Personally, these scenes were some of my favorite to write. Each one had to feel unique, intimate, and true to their character. I think that I wrote them 5 or 6 times before I was finally happy with them. It was a lot of work, but also an absolute joy. On to other news, the next update will be the start of Chapter 5, a very decisive chapter in which Ehlly's fate will be decided. It will be named The Branching Paths, so you better have 3 saved files ready. Wink wink. As always, thank you lots to my Patreons. Your support and patience means the world to me. If you want to become one of my wonderful supporters, there is a Patreon link for you. Anyways, there's not really much else to say, except for... thank you! Seriously, the fact that you took the time to download my game, read my story, and spend a little while with these characters means more to me than I can properly put into words. I truly hope that they made you laugh, smile, or maybe even think for a little while. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next update. Until then... So that was for Ikalis. So probably gonna snip a little bits here and there in order to reuse it for the other 2 routes. But yeah, so next up will be Almond. But yeah, so talking about Ikalis. It is nice to have a friend who can take you out of that headspace that you frequently find yourself in, where you're like ruminating, where you're always at work or something like that, you're always in the work mode, but then you have this friend that comes out and then they don't do it in a like malicious or in a like they don't really know what they're doing type of sense where they're like bothering you or something. It's more like, hey, you kind of need, you know, to take a load off, so here, come with me and we'll do something interesting. And it's something that is gonna be fulfilling for the both of them. And yeah, and obviously they did have to have that conversation where Ehlly was sort of stalking Ikalis and going somewhere that's supposed to be private between Ikalis and his father, who I believe is suffering from Alzheimer's. So yeah. I don't know if he meant to put that in there, but like the Fang of Nero. What else? But yeah, I look forward to the future because if I recall correctly, like as Jaden said, the next part is where the branches are gonna start, meaning that you're gonna go like, oh, well, isn't it already branching? No, I mean, where the real story for each of the 3 characters picks up. So like, yeah, so I believe that this is where they leave the canine specific continent and some of them go to like, to where like the cats are, one goes to like the desert, I think that would be Roderick. And I'm assuming the other one's gonna go with the eagles, the birds, so we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, so what are your thoughts? Are you excited for the future of the Heart of Amethyst? Are you excited that the story is updating again? Write it down in the comments, and thank you all for watching/listening. If you would like to play the Heart of Amethyst yourself, you can do so by going down to the link in the description, which have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download and play the game yourself. If you'd like to support the project, consider joining their Patreon, which gives you earlier access to the builds of Heart of Amethyst and some behind-the-scenes stuff. I do think that he does have some spicier stuff on there, so like, yeah. If you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, which gives you earlier access to these videos as they're being scheduled. This is being recorded on July the 26th. It'll come out probably the 3rd week of August, so yeah. It'll be like, each one of the boys will have their own day, so like this will be Monday, Almond will be Wednesday, and Roderick will be Friday, so yeah. Anyways, so I guess that's it for now. Oh, also I have a Ko-fi in case, you know, any form of support is appreciated. Give the video a like, subscribe, whatever, blah blah blah, throne. Anyways, so, yeah, I'll see you next time. I'll see you in the next video. I'll see you with Almond. Bye-bye.